When my parents told me they were heading out of town for the weekend, I nodded, pretending not to care. But as soon as the door closed behind them, and the car disappeared down the street, silence swallowed the household. I stood there for a moment, letting the stillness settle around me. No voices, no footsteps, just me alone. At first, it felt liberating. No curfews, no questions, no background noise of parental concern. I wandered through the rooms barefoot, letting the cool wooden floor chill the undersides of my feet. I opened the fridge, closed it again, sat on the couch, flipped through TV channels. Nothing held my attention for more than a few minutes. By midday, boredom had turned into restlessness. I paced, I scrolled. I stared out the window. And then I saw him. Liam. He was mowing his lawn, shirtless as usual when the sun was out, muscles tensed and released with each push of the mower. His movements were unhurried, almost lazy but precise. He was 6 years older than me, lived next door with his wife Claire, and was the sort of neighbor every mom flirted with and every dad secretly envied. I used to joke about his suburban hotness to my friends, but there was something more about him, something simmering beneath the charm. I watched him for a moment longer than I should have, then looked away, embarrassed even though no one could see me. Liam and I had shared a few words here and there, small talk, light teasing. Once, he'd helped me carry a heavy box inside when my parents weren't home. I'd offered him a soda, and he stayed longer than he needed to. We'd laughed about something, maybe the weather, maybe a neighbor's ugly Christmas lights, but I remembered how his eyes had lingered, how my pulse had jumped now, watching him again. I wondered if he ever thought about that moment the way I did. I sat back on the couch, legs curled under me, phone in hand. My fingers hovered over his name in my contacts list. I'd added it months ago, a half-joke after needing to text him about a package mistakenly delivered to his porch. I shouldn't, but I did. Me. Hey, what are you up to? The dots appeared almost instantly. Liam. Just got done mowing, sweaty and gross. Lol. You. Me. Bored out of my mind, parents are gone for the weekend. I've got the house to myself. I stared at the message, wondering if I'd made it sound too obvious. Too much. But before I could overthink it further, he replied, Liam. Lucky you, Claire's in Denver for a work trip. Feels weird being solo, doesn't it? Me. So weird. Wanna come over and keep me company? Just hang out? There was a long pause. I bit my lip, staring at the screen. Then, Liam, sure. Be there in 10 minutes. I leapt off the couch, heart thudding. I rushed to the mirror, ran a brush through my hair, changed shirts twice before settling on something casual, but flattering. I swiped on a bit of gloss. Told myself it was nothing, just a neighbor stopping by, just two lonely people on a quiet weekend, but deep down, I knew better. As the minutes passed, I could feel my pulse ticking up. My skin felt electric, like it was anticipating something my brain hadn't dared put into words. The doorbell rang, and I stood frozen for a second, hand on the doorknob, trying to steady my breathing. When I opened it, there he was, Liam, a faint smile on his lips. Damp hair still tousled from his shower. His eyes flicked over me, just once. Quick, but intentional. Hey, he said casually. Hope I'm not crashing. I stepped aside, gesturing him in. You're not, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I invited you. The door closed behind him with a soft thud. The house felt different now, fuller, warmer. Charged, and though neither of us said it, the air between us was humming with something unspoken, something neither of us planned, but maybe both of us wanted. Liam stepped inside like he'd done it 1,000 times before, though we both knew this was a first. He looked around the living room, hands in his pockets, eyes briefly scanning the space before settling on me. Quiet place when they're not around, he said, his tone casual. But his eyes said something else, something cautious, curious to quiet. I replied, curling my feet underneath me on the couch as I reached for the remote. I was starting to talk to myself. He chuckled and sank into the armchair across from me. We sat in silence for a beat, the TV humming in the background, playing something neither of us cared about. It wasn't awkward, not exactly, just charged. I stole a glance at him. His damp hair had started to curl slightly at the edges. He wore a fitted gray t-shirt and jeans, nothing special, but it clung to his frame like it had been stitched for him. My stomach fluttered and I hated how obvious it felt. So, he said, leaning forward, forearms on his knees, What do college girls do for fun these days when their parents leave town? I smiled. Definitely not this. Usually there's tequila involved, maybe a terrible decision or two. He nodded, grinning. So I'm your bad decision tonight. He meant it as a joke, I think. But he didn't laugh, neither did I. The room dipped into silence again, but this time, it wasn't empty. It was loaded. I stood up, stretching a little too slowly. You want something to drink? We've got wine, maybe beer somewhere. Wine's good, he said. I poured us both a glass and handed him his. Our fingers brushed for a second longer than necessary. His hand was warm, steady, mine not so much. We sipped in unison, pretending the space between us was smaller than it felt. The wine was just an excuse, but it helped. We talked about nothing important. Whether Claire's job, my classes, but the words weren't the point. The tone was softer now, lingering. I always wondered what it'd be like, I said quietly, after a lull in conversation. He looked over, confused. What would it be like? I met his gaze head on. To be alone with you. He didn't answer right away. His face didn't change, but his grip on the wine glass tightened just slightly. Ava, he said finally, his voice low, we probably shouldn't go there. But we already have, I whispered, and there it was. Spoken aloud, the truth that had been simmering. Since the moment he walked through that door, he didn't protest, didn't get up. Instead, he set his glass down carefully, then leaned back in his seat, eyes on me like he was seeing something he hadn't let himself acknowledge before. You've got no idea how dangerous you are, he said. Then why are you still here? I rose from the couch, walking slowly toward him. My legs felt like they didn't belong to me. He stayed put as I came closer, until I was standing directly in front of him. I watched his chest rise and fall. Just slightly quicker now. You should tell me to stop, I said. His hand reached up, brushed my waist. I should. He didn't. I leaned down. Our lips met, hesitant, searching. It was soft at first, almost uncertain, then bolder. Hungrier. The armchair creaked beneath him as he shifted, pulling me down onto his lap. My fingers found his hair, and his breath hitched against my mouth. Everything blurred, the couch, the wine, the walls. It was just touch and heat and want, crashing together in a quiet living room where no one else could see. My heartbeat was deafening. At some point, I whispered, we don't have to go further, but he looked at me like that wasn't even a question anymore. We moved to my bedroom. We didn't speak. The door clicked shut behind us, and the air grew thick with anticipation. Clothes came off in silence, fingers trembling slightly. Not with fear, but with adrenaline. What happened next wasn't slow. It wasn't careful. It was everything we hadn't said. Every stolen look, every buried thought. It was wrong, and it was real. And when it was over, we lay there, tangled in sheets and guilt. Liam's voice cut through the stillness. We can't let this happen again. I turned my head to look at him. But you're not sorry, I said. He didn't answer. I woke up to sunlight streaming through the blinds, cutting sharp lines across the floor. For a moment, I couldn't place where I was. The room looked familiar, but it felt different, too quiet, too still. Then I turned my head and saw the empty space beside me. Liam was gone. Only the faint scent of him remained on the pillow next to mine, clean laundry, a hint of cologne. And something else, something heavier. Regret, maybe. I sat up, pulling the sheet around myself, heart thudding with the weight of everything that had happened. Last night hadn't been a dream. It had been real, every look, every kiss, every unspoken boundary crossed and shattered. At first, I waited, thinking maybe he'd gone to get water or to the bathroom. But minutes ticked by, and the silence grew deeper. I slipped out of bed and crept into the hallway. No sign of him. The front door was closed but unlocked. He'd left. Without a word. Back in my room, I spotted his t-shirt draped over the chair. I picked it up instinctively, holding it close to my chest like it could answer the questions swirling in my head. Was it a mistake? Was I just a distraction from his loneliness, or worse, had he planned to forget this the moment it ended? I grabbed my phone and stared at the screen. No messages eventually. I typed one, "Me, are you okay?" I didn't expect an immediate response, but the silence that followed still stung. 2 hours later, a reply. Liam, we should pretend it didn't happen. That was it. No explanation. No apology. Just a neatly packaged denial. My stomach twisted. I reread the message 3 times before setting the phone down. The words blurred. So that was it. Just like that, it was over, erased. I tried to distract myself, watched mindless videos, opened textbooks I had no intention of studying, stared blankly out the window. Nothing worked. My body still buzzed with the memory of him, but my mind was already rewriting last night into something dirtier, sadder, a secret. My parents came home that evening, completely unaware. My mom talked about the traffic. My dad complained about the hotel pillows. I nodded at the right moments, smiled when they looked at me, and felt like a stranger in my own skin. The worst part was how normal everything seemed. A few days passed. I hadn't seen Liam. The curtains in their bedroom were drawn. The porch light stayed off. I told myself to forget it, that it didn't matter, but then on a sunny afternoon, I saw them. Liam and Claire. She was pulling groceries out of their car, chatting happily, laughing at something. He said. He was smiling, lifting a bag in each hand like nothing had changed. Our eyes met, just for a second. And in that second, I saw the lie sitting behind his smile. He looked away first. Later that evening, there was a knock at the door. I opened it and froze. Claire stood there, bright and cheerful, holding a bottle of white wine and a small container of pastries. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled. She looked like someone who hadn't spent the last week living beside a betrayal. "Hey, Ava," she said warmly. "I just wanted to thank you for always being so sweet to Liam. It means a lot, especially when I'm traveling so much. He told me you've been great company." My throat tightened. "Oh, it's nothing, we just talked. I'm glad," she said. "It's nice to know someone's keeping him grounded when I'm away. Come by sometime, okay? I'll cook dinner." She handed me the wine, smiled again, then turned and walked away like she hadn't just poured salt into a wound. I closed the door and stood there, stunned. Her kindness hurt more than any accusation would have. She didn't know. Not yet, but I did. I carried the wine to the kitchen and set it on the counter. My reflection in the microwave caught my eye. Messy hair, tired eyes, and something else: shame. I used to think being alone in the house meant freedom. Now I understood. It meant facing yourself with no distractions, no noise to drown out your thoughts. Last weekend, I let desire eclipse reason. I invited chaos into a quiet space, and now I had to live with it. Liam might have walked out, but the guilt stayed. It whispered when the lights went out. It lingered when no one was watching, and worst of all, it didn't feel finished.